Hello and welcome to this episode of Compensation Insider. Today, I want to talk about a reader question. It's about managing the salary increments for employees that are either on fixed-term contract or contractors that are hired for a set period of time. So this person had attended one of my compensation programs in Kuala Lumpur and reached out to me after the training to ask me this question. I'd like to ask for staff who are on contract at which point their salary can be reviewed at the end of the contract, whether it's 2 years or 3 years, or are they also subject to the yearly increment if the company declares such a payment? So the person was looking for my feedback on that. So my advice on that is that the first thing that you need to do is to check if the contract has any provision for salary revision to be done, and if so, when and under which rules? Because of course, if there is a provision in the contract that you need to give at minimum, what's included in the contract, right? If there is nothing in the contract about reviewing the pay of the contract employee, it's up to you or your company to decide. I know that contractors are not supposed to be legal employees of the company. However, in a lot of cases, what happens is that their official employer would be asking for our feedback where the contractor has been assigned to make their own decision. So here's my rule of thumb. If the contract is 1 year or less, I don't think there should be a salary revision unless there's like a massive inflation or devaluation, like 10% or more in the currency. Maybe if you're very happy with the work of the person, you want to give them a discretionary project completion bonus at the end of the project if their work really exceeded expectations. But if the contract, whether it's a fixed-term contract or a contractor who's working, but the contract, their employment contract is less than 1 year, typically there shouldn't be a salary revision. If the contract is for 2 years or 3 years, personally, what I would recommend is to review the pay at the end of year 1 and at the end of year 2, and maybe give a salary increase. But if the two conditions are met, the first one is that the regular employees on a full-time contract inside the company are receiving an increase. So you don't give to people who are on contract if you don't give to your regular employees. And the second point, at the same time, the performance of the employee who's on contract should be at least that they're meeting the expectations or going above. But if they don't meet both conditions, you would not give them anything. And if both conditions are met, i.e. you give a salary review to your regular employees, plus the contractor has at least meeting expectation or above the expectation, then you give to them something that you would give similar to what you would give to the employees, to your regular employees, or that's at least what you can recommend to the official employer of the person. If you have many of those contract employees, so I've been in situations where we had like whole swaths of employees that were contract employees, so outsourced but inside, and those can range from the receptionists to cleaning people, to IT support, to accounting people, to even some very specific high-end, highly skilled types of positions. So if you have many of those, I would recommend to do one review each quarter for all the employees who have a contract anniversary within that quarter. And you look at their performance over the past year, and you decide if you want to propose something for them and backdate it to the month of their actual anniversary for their contract. So for example, if you have 3 employees that have an anniversary date in January, 1 employee in February, and 1 in March, You review all 5 employees at the end of March, decide if you will propose an increase to some or all of them, and then backdate it to either January or February if needed. And if you do that on a quarterly basis, it will save you time, and it will give you and the managers enough to anticipate that you will need to do this. And you have a better chance of not missing your deadline, you know, and ensure that you can plan your workload in terms of payroll, finance, you know, all those processes, and informing the official employer if it's not a fixed term contract, but if it's a contractor. So obviously you could decide on another approach, but I found this one to be fair, because short-term contractors for less than 1 year don't receive more chance of a review than what a regular employee would get. You treat your long-term contractors in a fair way, where their salary, at least you're proposing to their official employer to move it in line with what you're doing at your own organization, so that you have a lower risk for them to get disengaged or change project in the middle of their contract with you. You don't give more or less to contract employees than to regular employees, so the budgets are kind of aligned in terms of spending, and you can plan and anticipate your workload and the impact on managers for the kind of performance feedback, and as well as the contracting company, so that they can change the salaries and backdate them on time. So I think this is a good way to proceed, and it helps the organization to manage those contractors in a way which does not create legal liability, that they are treated as like an employee, but that also recognizes that the company nowadays is a much more fluid organism than it used to be even like 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and that we have all sorts of different types of contract and people who cohabit in the same space to serve the purposes of the organization. So I think that's a good way to go. If you've ever had like a different approach for your employees that are on fixed term contract or your contractors, please share. I'll be very interested to see what was working, not working with other organizations, and maybe we can all learn something new. Thank you so much, and speak to you next week.